All right, let's talk about Shakespeare. We all know the great tragedies, right? Hamlet, Othello, Macbeth, they're absolute cornerstones of literature. But what if there's a secret layer to these stories, a kind of code that's been hiding in plain sight for centuries? Today we're going to look at these classics through a lens that is, well, it's pretty out there.
Yeah, you heard that right. What if the bard wasn't just writing about human drama, but was kind of accidentally tapping into the fundamental laws of the universe itself? We're about to dive into this really fascinating theory that completely reframes these plays as stories about consciousness and all the different ways it can spectacularly collapse.
So here's the core idea. These characters aren't just flawed guys. They're living, breathing examples of how a complex system can break down. This theory sees them as these unique, entangled mental states, and each one is on a collision course with a totally different kind of cosmic disaster.
Okay, let's start with the Prince of Denmark. We always think of Hamlet as being indecisive, right? He just can't make up his mind. But this theory asks us to flip that on its head. What if he's not indecisive? What if he's actually trapped in a state of pure, paralyzed potential?
You know, in the quantum world, a particle can be in many places or states at once. It's called superposition, but only until you measure it. The second you look, it has to pick one. Well, the idea here is that Hamlet is a human superposition. His famous line, "to be or not to be," suddenly isn't just a philosophical question. It's a literal description of his state of existence. And this really gets to the core of why he's so paralyzed. He is the avenger and the pacifist at the exact same moment. He's a walking, talking cloud of possibility. But every time he thinks about it, every time he hesitates, he's essentially observing himself, threatening to collapse all that incredible potential into just one tragic reality.
I mean, it's an incredible parallel to the quantum observer effect. Hamlet basically spells it out for us right here. He's saying reality isn't fixed until you look at it, until you think about it. He seems to get that his own mind is what's creating the prison he's so desperately trapped in.
So this means Hamlet's real tragedy isn't just his death. It's the collapse of that beautiful, complex state of pure potential. The moment he's finally backed into a corner and forced to act instead of just observe, his entire quantum state collapses, and the explosion of that collapse brings everyone, including himself, down with it.
All right, now let's switch gears and talk about Othello. Because if Hamlet's story is about the paralysis of just watching, Othello's is about what happens when a perfect, clear signal gets intentionally scrambled into absolute destructive chaos. So try to picture the love and trust between Othello and Desdemona as two perfect sound waves, completely in sync. They amplify each other, they make each other stronger. That's what physicists call constructive interference. Their emotional signal is powerful, it's coherent, it's clear. But then it all falls apart through something this theory calls emotional decoherence. And this totally reframes Othello's tragedy. It isn't just about simple jealousy. No, it's the systematic corruption of emotional data. It's someone scrambling the signal with lies until the original truth is impossible to find. And the person at the control panel, of course, is Iago. He is the ultimate signal jammer. Every single lie, every doubt, every little innuendo he whispers, it's all just destructive interference. He's methodically feeding noise into the system to cancel out the clean waveform of their love until there's nothing left but static.
And Othello's downfall is just a brutal, perfect example of this. He looks right at Desdemona, the source of the signal, but it's been so corrupted by Iago's noise that he sees a monster. By the time he can finally hear the truth again, it is way too late. The original, beautiful, coherent signal of their love has been permanently destroyed.
And finally, that brings us to Macbeth. Now, in this framework, Macbeth isn't just an ambitious guy who makes a terrible choice. He becomes something more like a force of nature. He's an engine, and his only purpose is to increase the amount of disorder in the universe.
Just imagine Macbeth's world as a pretty stable, orderly system at the start of the play. The witch's prophecy, that's the first little injection of chaos, of entropy into that system. And then his ambition acts like gasoline on that spark, relentlessly fanning it into a wildfire that spreads disorder through every single part of his world. And you can literally track the decay step by step. Each murder he commits isn't just a crime.
It's another dose of thermodynamic disorder injected into reality. He starts by corrupting the social order, then the bonds of friendship, and finally his own humanity, pushing everything unstoppably toward one final, total collapse.
This famous line suddenly sounds a lot different, doesn't it? It's basically Shakespeare's poetic version of the second law of thermodynamics. In a closed system, disorder or entropy will always increase. Once Macbeth starts down that dark road, the chaos can only feed on itself and get stronger.
So Macbeth's death isn't just about good triumphing over evil. It's the natural, inevitable end of an entropic system. He has burned through every last scrap of order in his world. He's reached the limit. The system just burns out. The engine sputters to a stop, and all that's left is silence.
So let's zoom out for a second and see what happens when we put all of this together. Looking at it this way, Shakespeare starts to look like more than just a playwright. It's like he was some kind of quantum engineer of the soul.
So what we have are three completely different models for a tragedy. You've got Hamlet, a universe of possibility, completely paralyzed by the act of being observed. You've got Othello, a pure emotional signal that's totally wiped out by false interfering data. And you have Macbeth, an orderly world that is driven into absolute chaos by the relentless engine of entropy.
So the huge takeaway here isn't that these are just stories about bad choices. No. Through this weird quantum lens, they become something much bigger. They're like simulations of consciousness itself, with each one being a kind of mental architecture specifically designed to crash under the weight of a different fundamental law of the universe.
It's a truly mind-bending way to reread the classics, stories we all thought we knew inside and out. And it leaves us with this one big, provocative question. If a code like this could be hiding in Shakespeare, what other incredible secrets are just waiting to be unlocked in the stories you thought you already knew?